There is a silence in your life that you have mistaken for abandonment. You look around and see movement everywhere, couples intertwining, families forming, futures being written in tandem while you remain still, as if time itself has forgotten your name. The question arrives with merciless clarity. Am I invisible? Have I been overlooked by the very force that promised to see me? You have called this season many things: loneliness, delay, punishment. You have wondered if there is something fundamentally wrong with the architecture of your heart, some hidden flaw that disqualifies you from the warmth others seem to find so easily. You have watched doors close, one after another, and with each closing, you felt a little more erased, a little more convinced that love is a language you were never meant to speak. But what if I told you that this emptiness is not what you think it is? What if the silence you are experiencing is not the sound of divine forgetfulness, but the deliberate quieting of voices that would have drowned out your own? What if this solitude, this confusing, aching stretch of aloneness, is not rejection at all, but the most profound form of protection you have ever received? Consider this carefully. You have been kept single not because you are unworthy of love, but because you are too valuable to be given to just anyone. There is a difference, you see, between being forgotten and being safeguarded. And right now, in this moment that feels so much like abandonment, you are being guarded with a fierceness you cannot yet comprehend. Think of it this way. Imagine that within you exists a treasury, something irreplaceable, sacred, woven from the fabric of your very essence. Now imagine that there have been hands reaching for that treasury, hands that would not have honored what they held, hands that would have taken and broken and scattered what was never theirs to claim. The doors that closed in your life, they were not closing on you. They were closing for you, barricading entry points that would have led only to plunder. You have been calling this season a drought, but perhaps it has been a detoxification, a withdrawal from patterns that felt like love, but were actually dependencies, a recalibration of everything you once believed you needed in order to feel whole. Because here is what happens when we enter relationships before we are ready, before we have built a foundation that can bear weight. We use the other person as scaffolding. We lean so heavily into their presence that we forget how to stand in our own. We outsource our emotional regulation to someone else's approval, someone else's attention, someone else's ability to stay. And when they leave because scaffolding is temporary, because people are not meant to be structures, we collapse, we crumble. We conclude that we are fundamentally incapable of standing. But that was never true. The problem was never your capacity to stand. The problem was that you were never given the time, the space, the holy solitude necessary to discover that you could. You moved from connection to connection, relationship to relationship. Or perhaps you simply longed so intensely for connection that you never learned what it means to be complete in your own company. You never discovered the quiet strength that comes from being alone without being lonely, present without needing to be witnessed, whole without needing to be chosen. And so the divine, call it God, call it life, call it the deepest intelligence woven into the fabric of existence, did something that felt cruel but was actually merciful. It removed the option of distraction. It closed every door that would have allowed you to escape yourself. It held you in a kind of loving containment, a sacred pause, long enough for you to realize that the love you have been seeking outside has always existed within. This is the work of singleness, not the passive waiting you have imagined, but the active construction of a self that does not fracture in the absence of another. This is the season where you learn to be your own anchor, your own source of comfort, your own most reliable companion, where you discover that solitude is not the same as loneliness, that one is emptiness and the other is fullness, that one is the ache of absence and the other is the peace of presence. You are being taught to regulate your own emotions, to sit with your own discomfort, to meet your own needs with tenderness instead of shame. You are learning what it means to take up space in your own life, to stop apologizing for the room you occupy, to recognize that you are not a half waiting to be completed, but a whole being capable of expansion. And this matters more than you know, because when love finally arrives, and it will arrive, Make no mistake, you will not need it to survive. You will not cling to it with the desperation of someone drowning. You will not twist yourself into unrecognizable shapes just to keep it from leaving. You will choose it from a place of overflow, not scarcity. You will enter it as someone who knows her own worth, who has already built a life that feels full, who understands that partnership is an addition to wholeness, not a remedy for brokenness. This is what the waiting has been for. Not to punish you, but to prepare you. Not to withhold love, but to ensure that when love comes, it will be the kind of love that honors what you have built, that meets you at your depth, that does not require you to shrink or perform or earn your place. You have been kept single because the version of you that enters the next chapter must be different from the version that entered the last. The woman who survived by seeking validation in every gaze that lingered too long, she is being transformed. The girl who mistook intensity for intimacy, who believed that love must hurt to be real, she is being healed. The heart that learned to attach to unavailability, to chase what pulled away, to find home in chaos, it is being rewired. This is not punishment. This is reconstruction. And reconstruction requires time, requires solitude, requires the kind of deep inner work that cannot happen in the noise of constant connection. There is a reason you have been held here, in this quiet, in this waiting. It is because the love that is coming for you will require a different foundation than the ones you built before. It will require stability where there was once volatility. It will require clarity where there was once confusion. It will require a woman who knows herself so deeply that she cannot be swayed by charm alone, by promises alone, by the mere presence of attention. You are being kept single so that you stop mistaking crumbs for feasts, so that you stop settling for connections that make you feel small, so that you learn to recognize the difference between someone who wants you and someone who is ready for you, between someone who fills a void and someone who celebrates your fullness. And yes, it is hard. It is lonely in ways that language often fails to capture. There are nights when the silence feels unbearable, when you would give anything just to be held, just to be chosen, just to know that you matter to someone in the way you long to matter. There are moments when you question everything you're worth, your future, the very goodness of the force you have trusted to guide your life. But even in those moments, something is happening beneath the surface. Roots are deepening. Strength is forming. The woman you are becoming is taking shape in the kiln of this solitude, and she will emerge forged, unshakable, radiant, with the kind of wholeness that cannot be borrowed or bestowed, but only cultivated from within. So stop interpreting this season as evidence of your inadequacy. Stop scrolling through others' joy and concluding that you have been passed over. Stop believing that the delay is a denial, that the wait is a verdict on your value. You have not been forgotten. You have been chosen for something that requires more preparation than you realized, more transformation than you expected, more depth than you yet possess. The love you are being prepared for will not ask you to betray yourself. It will not require you to silence your intuition, to ignore red flags, to convince yourself that suffering is the same as devotion. It will meet you where you are whole and invite you into something even more expansive. It will feel like rest, like recognition, like coming home to a place you have never been but have always known. And when it arrives, you will understand why the doors closed. You will see, with stunning clarity, that every rejection was a redirection. Every ending was a beginning. Every moment of aloneness was an invitation to discover the most important relationship you will ever have. The one with yourself, and the one with the divine that holds you even when you cannot feel it. You are not being kept single because you are broken. You are being kept single because you are being built. And what is being built within you is worth every moment of this sacred, necessary wait. Trust the silence. Trust the solitude. Trust that the hands holding your heart right now know exactly what they are doing. And that when the time is right, when you are ready, when the foundation is solid and the heart is whole, love will find you not as a rescue, but as a homecoming.